Hello, and thank you to everyone who attended my presentation, Mastering WebSockets with ColdFusion, Code Faster, Code Smarter at this year's ColdFusion Summit. As you all know, I ran out of time and wasn't able to do my usual live coding portion. So as promised, in this video, I will guide you through setting up your WebSocket server, configuring your application to use them, showcasing some neat built-in features, walking you through some advanced techniques, and showing you how to handle scenarios that may make your application appear broken when it's not. So we'll break this into a couple of sections. First, we'll talk requirements. Then we'll do a basic communication demo. We'll talk about selectors, move on to our channel listeners and our messaging framework, review how to broadcast from the server. Then we'll look at my library AdvancedSocket and a console utility. So let's begin. First, we'll make sure that we have WebSockets installed in our ColdFusion server. So let me look at my ColdFusion admin, and as you can see here in my installed packages, it is installed. When I started my server, I went into my available packages, found my package and installed it. You can do it through here, or you can do it through CFPM, which is your ColdFusion Package Manager CLI. Again, you instantiate that, and once you're in that CLI, you can just type install WebSocket and the WebSocket server will be installed. Then you want to go to your server settings in your WebSocket tab and set up everything that you need for the way you're going to use it. If you're going to use proxy, which is my preferred method when I'm using like IIS, you just click here and all these settings kind of go away. Only this port stays available, and it's important to know this port. And then since I'm using command box, I'm going to use the built-in WebSocket server, and I do want to use SSL. And because of that, I have to put in a key store or a PKCS12 file, which is what I'm using here, a PFX. Then I put my password, submit my changes. You'll notice that I have this off because, well, Flash is not even supported anymore. Once you do that, you go ahead and restart your server, and then you can start working with your application. So now let's look at our application CFC. Make sure that we have this .ws channels. That's the array of structs that define our channels. Channels are defined by just a name. So here I have dashboard and protected actually has a listener, which we'll review later. Next up, we'll look at our index file. Next thing you need to do is have your CF WebSocket tag. This brings in all the libraries that need to be used in order to work with WebSockets. You put a name attribute, that's your global JavaScript object that you work with. In this one, I called it WS, as in most examples. And then we tell it what we want to do on message and on open. On message is the only required one, and name. Other than that, everything else is optional. On open is because I'm not using the subscribe to attribute. So on open, I'm going to decide who to subscribe to in my JavaScript code. And then I have secure attribute here. It's just simply because since I'm using command box, I want this to be dynamic. If I wasn't on a SSL port, that will be false. And if I am on a SSL port, that will be true. If you're using proxy, remove that attribute. You do not need it. It will cause errors. And then in my app.js, I have that simple chat object. Again, it has an ID. On open, I want to go ahead and call it WS subscribe. I'm going to subscribe to my dashboard. Then on message, I receive my message. I'm going to console log that message. And based on the request type or message type that I'm getting, if it's welcome, that's that first message I'm going to get back. It's going to give me my client ID. I'm going to save that here so I know who I am. And then in data, that's when I receive a message from the server that's been published. I'm going to pass in the channel name, the data, which is a string, and then I'm going to see if the publisher ID matches my ID. And if so, that means I sent this. If not, it's received. And these are just what's building the UI and then giving us that nice look. So now let's go to our pages, to our actual implementation. And as we can see, let me get rid of this here. We have our connection, as you can see here. And then, of course, we sent out these messages and we got back. We got our welcome, request type welcome, as you can see here. And inside I got my client ID. And I also get it during subscribe, but welcome is the one that does it. So that's the one I work with. And then let me grab my another browser here and let's just test. Hello, world. And here we go. There we go, from Firefox to Chrome, and then from Chrome to Firefox. Oops. So with that, we have a simple chat app, and we are basically communicating back and forth. We are publishing and receiving messages. So this is the basic communication to get you started. So next up, we're going to work on selectors. This is a built-in feature that allows you to kind of filter or control the flow of messages without any additional coding in the back end. But before we do that, I want to show you subscribers. Again, this is just a page that I have that I'm dumping my channels and looping through them and looking at the subscriber information and dumping it out so I can see who is subscribed. And as you can see, I have 2 subscribers now to the dashboard top level channel. And if I want to go ahead and unsubscribe, I can use the unsubscribe function here and just pass in dashboard. And I'm going to pass the same to the one on my Firefox. And if I refresh this, you'll see that there's nobody subscribed. I mean, we are connected, but we are not subscribed. So now everything we do, we're going to do in our web console here. So I just want to make this a little bit easier to read. And the first thing we're going to do is we are going to work with a subscriber that wants to put a selector in the beginning as they're starting to subscribe. So when you put a selector at your subscription level, what you're doing is you are basically saying, for instance here, I want to subscribe to dashboard, but I only want to receive messages that have a key of department and that key equals HR. So I'm going to go ahead and subscribe here. And then this guy here, I am going to say that I want to subscribe to dashboard, and I have a department key of accounting. So I don't have a selector, right? Just going to do that. And let's look what those subscribers look like now. As you can see, one subscriber says, hey, I have a selector, says, for me to get a message, it has to have a key of department. It has to equal HR. And here I just say, I'm in accounting, doesn't really say much. It's okay. So now let's go ahead and publish a message. So we're going to publish this message here. As you can see, I get the hello world, but this user doesn't. And that's because the message has to have a key of department. So where do you add that? Again, in the custom options, we can go like this. Oops, sorry. I'll go ahead, department, and put HR here. And once I said that, you can see that both clients get it. So that's handling it at the subscription level. So let's go ahead and let's unsubscribe again. And this time, I'm not going to put a selector for this user, but instead I am going to just subscribe with a department of HR. Again, now when we look at our subscribers, you can see I have one in accounting and one in HR. Of course, this is accounting, this is HR. Let's clear our log here. And let's send a message using a selector. So that one will be, I'm going to publish this message, hello world. And this is telling, hey, I need you to publish this message, but only to users or subscribers that have a department key equal to HR. So if I send that, that's who gets it over here, HR. I said, okay, well, you know what? Let's send it to accounting. There you go. You could even say not equal to accounting. And if you can do numeric values or anything, you can do less than, equals, less than or greater than, and greater than or, sorry, less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. And that right there is, in a nutshell, how selectors work. Real easy, real nice way to kind of like control how the messages are flowing. But again, your channels are pretty much open. So next up, we're going to go and talk about channel listeners. So channel listeners will allow you to control the flow of your messages in your channels. It gives you certain events that you can listen to and allows you to protect your channels. But to understand that, let's look at the messaging framework. So looking at the messaging framework, once we want to work with a CFC listener, there is one function that we can use now called authenticate. And authenticate will fire off the logic that you have on your function on WS authenticate that lives within your application CFC, which we'll view in a bit. After that, once the user sends that authenticate and gets back, hey, you are authenticated, then the WebSocket client can go ahead and subscribe to a channel. And what will happen is it will fire the allow subscribe event. In that event is where you validate, hey, is this person authenticated? If they are, then they can subscribe to the channel. And then after that, when you fire off publish or invoke and publish, it will check, can this user publish, right? So me, I'm publishing, I'm sending this message, can I publish? If I'm subscribed, yes, I can. Then before publish, it's going to look at my data. And this is where you want to do a like top level business logic on the message. Maybe this is where you want to check if it has bad words, if you have to clean it up, if you have to massage any data, maybe get some information, pull it in there. Then after that, it goes to two listeners, can send message and before send message. Now these execute for every subscriber, not the publisher. Now these are the subscribers. So it's going to go through each one and say, hey, can I send this message to a subscriber? And it's a true or false. And then before send message, it's going to say, hey, before I send this message to this subscriber, do I need to do anything? So this is when you want to customize it for that specific, subscriber, and so on. So if we look at that in our code, we're going to go and look at our channel listener. So let's close this out now. Again, we're going to continue working inside of our, inside of our console log in the bottom of our browsers. But first, let's go through this. So again, allow subscribe. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say, hey, is this person authenticated? And if it is, I'm going to publish to everybody who's assigned that this person has joined the channel. So that's a cool little listener, like when somebody subscribes. Then allow publish. Again, you can put a lot more logic here, but I'm just saying, hey, this person can publish if they are authenticated. Then before publish, I'm going to go ahead and grab this data, and normally you can return any, and really what you would return is just a message, but I want to do something before send message. And unfortunately, before send message does not have the publisher info. So I kind of create a struct here, put that publisher info, pass it through. So when before send message gets it, it's actually in there. And now I'm going to look for that arguments message publisher info. And I'm going to see if a key exists client ID, because when the server is sending out, not a subscriber, that field is not there. So I'm going to make sure that field is actually exists. And then I'm going to say, okay, well, if the arguments subscriber info, connection info, client ID equals this publisher info's client ID, that means it is me. And if not, then set it as false. And again, if it is me, I want you to send the message to me with you prepended to it. But if it's not me, then just send me the message. Then can send message for every subscriber. Here, I'm just returning true. Again, this is where you can put logic. And then you have your after unsubscribe. So again, after unsubscribe, I'm going to let everybody know that's connected who left that channel. And how does the authentication work? Well, here we're going to go into unWS authenticate, where you receive a username, string password, and connection info. Again, this is very simple. You would use something else here that's a little bit stricter, but just for examples, I have an array of users and it has a username and password, and I'm going to go through here and once I find a match, I'm going to say, hey, this user is authenticated, and I'm going to return back the username. I'm going to add the username, to the connection info. And then I'm just going to return that it is authenticated. And that's really all it is, right? You just have to return the true or false, whether they are authenticated. Again, you can return true or false here. Since this is being set to true or false, I return that. So let's see that in action. So let's go back over here. Again, working on our examples. We are going to unsubscribe. All right, we're going to unsubscribe. Good, we're unsubscribed on both. Let's make sure we're unsubscribed. Let's look at our subscribers. Yep, we are. And let's go ahead and try to subscribe to protected. So let's go here. Let's say subscribe protected. And you can see it says, hey, access is denied. And I get that code -1. That means that this requires authentication. Let's say we try to even publish to this. And as you probably expect, it's going to tell us that we can't publish. Hello. Yep, I don't have the permission. So the first thing we need to do in that framework, messaging framework, is that we need to authenticate. So let's do that. Let's authenticate. Okay, and let's do admin. And I believe the password was 123456. And you can see that the authentication failed because that is the wrong password, which I knew, but I wanted to show you that. So again, now let's go ahead and Authenticate, good, we're authenticated. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to go ahead and just grab this here so I don't have to type so much. We're going to authenticate as employee, and employee uses password. Okay, perfect. And now let's subscribe to these channels. So I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to protected. And you can see nothing happened because I am the first one there, so it's not going to send me a message. But now look what happens when this person subscribes after the other one. And we get that protected admin joined the channel. And that's because when he subscribed, it looked at my allow subscribed. And when it allowed it, it published to everybody who's already subscribed who just joined. And for instance, if I were to do unsubscribe here, now it tells the admin that the employee left the channel. But let's go ahead and subscribe again. And here we go, employee joined the channel again. All right, perfect. So now let's publish a message. Let's see, let's come over here. I'm going to publish that message. I believe I have it right here. Yeah, there we go. Hello, we are protected. Oop, I can't spell. Protected, I believe that. And as you can see, the person that received the message over here just says, hello, we are protected. But this that you sent it, because it knows it's you, on the server side, we went ahead and we prepended that U value. And this is basically how you can use channel listeners. Very easy to use, and again, it gives you a lot of power. Now, as per my understanding, once you have this enabled, selectors do not function. The server doesn't respect them. So let's test that. Let's see what that's like. Let's say that we want to publish a message. Do I have that here? Okay, I'm going to nope. I'm going to go over here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and publish a message. And let's pass a selector. So selector, let's say that selector is type equals 1. You see, it still goes through because the problem is that selector gets overridden by the can send message. So since that's true, and even then you wouldn't have access to the selector there. Once you are using a channel listener, selectors no longer work once you define this here. Okay, and that moves us now to broadcasting from the server. Okay, so now let's clear our logs and let's unsubscribe. I want to go ahead and actually let's just refresh these guys. Perfect. So we have them refreshed. When we look here, you see nobody's been protected anymore. And now we have these guys here. But I want to do a little something different. I do want to unsubscribe these guys. And let's do that. Because I want to subscribe them with some metadata. So I'm going to go ahead and subscribe as dashboard. And this guy is going to have a value of jokes true. And this one's going to have it false. Again, this does nothing more than just set some metadata. So if we look at our subscribers, we have one with jokes yes, jokes no. So let's look at broadcasting from the server. Let's look at our code first. I have two files here. One's just broadcast, and it's using WS Publish, where we pass the channel and the message we want to do. And the next one is called joke, which this I've used for a while. It's a Chuck Norris API. Definitely leave this off. That kind of bit me in the butt once where I was doing a demo and there was a lot of bad words behind me and I had no idea, but the whole room was laughing. And then this one's going to send it to, you know what, let's just, I'm going to remove that. We're just going to send it to dashboard. If I send it to dashboard jokes, everybody in dashboard will still get it. And then we're going to pass that attribute and then we're going to come play with this. But let's go back here. And as you can see, I have these two and I'm going to come have this. I'm just going to use curl to call that. As you can see, when I call curl, I am going ahead and I am getting these messages, right? Then I have a script here for joke that's going to send me a joke every 5 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my log. And we can see that both of them are getting the joke. Perfect. I'm going to grab my VS Code here and just let me, I'm going to go ahead and update this to have a selector. And I'm going to say where jokes equals true. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And if I go back to my view, you'll notice that the one on the left that has jokes true is continuing to get messages, while the one on the right does not. So not only can we publish from the server, but we can harness the power of the selectors and the types and the metadata. So now if the user would say, hey, I only want to receive a message that has a type of joke, they would put the selector and then that would work. And that is basically broadcasting from the server. Next up, we'll move into AdvancedSocket. So what is AdvancedSocket? I'm going to go ahead and refresh these guys so they can receive that. And I'm actually going to go back to the code, turn this off. All right, there we go. And we should be getting messages soon. There we go. Now what happens is if I look at my subscribers here, and let's say I did an update to my website, right? And I needed to reload my application. So I'm going to go ahead and reload my application. This right here is going to re-init my application. And when I do that, basically all subscribers are booted out and my channels get recreated. And you can see that I sent a message force reconnect. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the jokes are still running in the background. It's still sending jokes, but these guys are not getting it. And if for some reason I were to say, hey, it's connected, right? It's going to say true. So it appears that something might be wrong, but it really isn't. If I just go ahead and refresh this, client here, you'll see that now I'm starting to get that. So what do we do about this? Well, we work with AdvancedSocket. AdvancedSocket is a library I wrote. And again, I'm not going to go too much into it here, but this view here is using that library and it's doing a little bit of setup. And what I have here is it's going to go ahead and show the last message, right? So let's look at that. Let's look at that file real quick. And that's this advanced file. Again, you can go and see my AdvancedSocket library, and there's a little bit of documentation there that kind of guides you through all this. But really what it does is you still set up your CF WebSocket. You call this WS or whatever you want, and then just say on message, on open, on close, on error equals AdvancedSocket on message on, exactly. Just follow that pattern, include the library, and then you don't have to do this by default. But this here allows me to handle my connection states. I basically override these and say, okay, this is how I want you to handle when it's disconnected, connected, and connecting. And then this is my global on message. And then we put all the settings here in data attributes. And that's all covered in the documentation. But here, just to give you real quick, I want to auto connect. I want to subscribe to channels. Debug is true. I'm going to show you what that is. The message is going to be on message. The name is WS. Offline timer. When I go offline, how often do you want me to ping to check if we come back online? I want to do 2 seconds. While I'm online, only ping every 10 seconds. Ping CFM is a ping URL. And basically what it's doing is it's going to send the channels that you are connected to and your ID. And what you should do in that file is see if that ID is still connected. And if so, return back a struct of with a key of success with the value of true or false. Data reconnect timer. If you're on a, if you're on a framework that needs a little bit of load time, when it receives a, hey, go force reconnect, it's going to go, okay, I need to wait 2 seconds just to give the framework enough time or whatever I need to specify here. And again, here, message, we have a message label. We're basically saying, hey, that's where you're going to render the message. And then we have these here you can look up, but these are just services. I'm not going to cover them right now because this is beyond this, but you can see what that looks like when by looking at the subscribers and enabling that and looking at the documentation. So going back, we're going to go back over here. Oh, sorry. And let's look at that application. when we do a non-request and we have that reload, again, this is very simple. But what I'm doing is everybody's connected to dashboard. I'm going to send that force reconnect. I'm going to stop my application and I'm just going to reload my page. So let's see if we can see all that in action real quick. I'm going to move this guy over here so you can see what happens when I reconnect. So I'm going to reload. You can see that this one said, hey, it's been disconnected, but boom, it came right back. It connected. And let me open up the console so you can see. Just real quick, between these two, you can see that this one keeps getting messages, but this one is no longer getting messages. So again, the only one that's connected and reconnected itself is this. And again, that debug is showing you everything that's happened. So let me reload again. It's going to go ahead and force reconnect. The cool thing is that this library also handles network conditions. So let's say we go offline. Once we go offline, but we look at the console, it knows it's not going to keep calling. This is what happens like when your Wi-Fi fails or your network dies, like you unplug the cable, not network, but you unplug the cable or your Wi-Fi. But then once you come back on, it knows, it changes, and boom, we're right back. So it handles like losing your local network, handles the server going down, the server restarting. So if I were to restart my server, if I come here and let me go to my, and I would say restart, and that's going to restart the server. So this is like the server completely went down. You can see here that it's going and pinging and pinging and pinging. Actually, let me open this here because that's going to be failing. You can see how my script's failing here because the server is down. But there we go. And we got messages again. So that's it. Everything is running. This script is running. We're getting messages, but these other guys are not. And that is the basic usage of AdvancedSocket. Next up, we're going to talk about the console. Let me just go ahead and close out all these views. I'm going to reset all this. Let's kill this. All right, perfect. So now that we move into console, console is basically an application you can just drop into any of your ColdFusion applications. And just like AdvancedSocket, I don't believe I mentioned this before, but you'll have a box JSON that has these dependencies. So you can actually install these yourself. You can just say install Advanced WebSocket or install ColdFusion WebSocket console, and this will install it under a path of console as you see here. So bringing it up, this is already installed. I'm just going to go ahead and work with this. I'm going to try console here. And now I have this console app. And when you drop it into your application, let me go ahead and move this guy here. Sorry. I want to kind of have, and there we go. Let's see this guy here. Okay. All right. So we have our subscribers, we have our console. When you drop it into your application, again, with no, you can define your channels, you can define all your logic and still not build a UI. You can drop this in here and it should pick up all your top level channel names, but you can still type whatever you want here. So here I want to go ahead and subscribe to dashboard. All right, so now I've subscribed to dashboard. Great. Even then now, if this dashboard says hello, is the console here? Oop. As you can see, I'm getting messages for the dashboard published here, so I can see what's going around. And I can even talk to them. I can say, yes, console is here. And I publish, and you can see that I can send that message. And if we look here, we have that connection. Now we can now try, like, let's say we want to work with protected, right? And you go subscribe, but if it fails, it tells you this channel requires authentication. So now you can use this authentication box up here and try to authenticate. If it fails, it lets you know. So let's try again. All right. Oop, I think that's right. I used the wrong password. Okay, we authenticate. Now we're good. And now we can subscribe, and we are subscribed to that channel. And if I go here, you can see now under protected, I have that username subscribed. And you can use the custom options here. So I'm going to go back to dashboard. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and unsubscribe. So yeah, if you want to work with the channel, you have to write it here. But now I want to subscribe. But let's add a selector. Actually, no, let's add a jokes true. Jokes true, right? Let's add that. Let's add even something else. Let's say name John. First name. Let's just say first. Yeah, John Doe. Let's just do that. Let's subscribe. If we look here, we can see that we have, again, somebody connected to our dashboard with jokes true. Name is John Doe. Username is admin, and I guess it also gets added here to connection info on my authentication. On my authentication function. But yeah, so you can basically do everything here with your app without having to code anything. So like this is my app, I'm coding, but I want to test something, and it can interact. And now I also give you some sample components. Well, one sample component, which is under console services communicate. But here you can this is how you can work with invoke and publish and invoke, so you understand. And what it is, the first argument is the component, then your function name, and then your arguments are array based on position. So let's look at that file real quick so you understand what it's like. We're going to go here. There's two of them. I'm going to use publish and P2P. So point to point and publish. So publish will come here and I can pass a message and it's going to publish the message. If I use invoke and publish, it's going to do this, and the channel that I told it to, it's going to, whatever I return here, it's what's going to send out. So let's try that first. So we're going to put this guy back here again. So now we're going to go, okay, I'm going to go to dashboard. That's the channel I'm working with. I want to do this. I want to do publish, and I want to put a message. Hello from the invoke. Hello from the CFC, right? So I'm invoke and publish. You can see that I got it. So did that person. Let's add that delay. Let's add a delay of 3 seconds. Invoke and publish. It's going to go through, and in 3 seconds, we'll see that come through. There, perfect. So what happens if I use invoke? So if I use invoke, you'll notice that only I got that. Because when you use invoke, the only person that will receive a response is a person that initiated that call, right? I also have P2P. So P2P, if I use invoke and we look at that code, see P2P is going to come here. And it's going to run a thread back to the invoker. And for that invoker, it's going to go through 10 steps. And it's going to say, return this message just to them. And this return here would come back to who? Let's see. Okay, so we're going to go here. We're going to run invoke. Again, let's clear our log here. Let's run invoke. And you can see that I got that first communicate P2P. So I got that first message that came right back, and then 1 of 10, 2 of 10, and only I am getting that, right? But if I do invoke and publish, what happens is this user gets that return because it goes right into it, and then the threads, which is just to me, will only come to me. And that's how invoke and publish works versus invoke. So there is one section I did miss, and it was to review connecting to the ColdFusion WebSocket server without using the CF WebSocket tag and all the JavaScript files that brings. So for instance, just to give you an example of that, if we look at these two, this is static, disregarding the stuff that's for Chrome here, which you can see pretty much, that's the stuff that is for console. And here we have all that too, but we have that CF messages, CF Ajax, CF WebSocket core, CF WebSocket channel. So basically looking at those, right? We are not going to get those here. So what does that look like in our code? So looking at our code, we have, again, just the view. Everything's pretty much the same, but now I just kind of use this stuff here, and I'm kind of working, it's more hard coded. Like, I knew if it's secure, and I use my protocol and port, and I call the new WebSocket with the WebSocket API call. So it's pretty straightforward, right? And then when I do an on open, I'm going to go ahead and subscribe to dashboard, and that subscribe call I have here. And then I have that on message. So that's the listener. I'm going to say, okay, on message, I need you to do this following stuff, right? And then the subscribe, again, I'm working 3 functions: subscribe, unsubscribe, and publish. And what these functions do it sends that payload over. So WS send, right, that's how you send a message through WebSocket. And I'm going to stringify that because ColdFusion expects this object, which has our application name, the type, so this is subscribe, the channel we want to send, and then we can even pass some custom options like this. Again, and unsubscribe, same thing. It's just a JSON object that we stringify, app name, that's the application. So you need to know the application, right? Because all this stuff gets added into your app automatically when you use the CF WebSocket tag. But again, if you needed to work on another project, I actually have a CF WebSocket JS. I haven't worked on it in a while, so that's why I didn't include it in this video. Maybe I'll do a video on it in the future. But this is basically the simplest way, right? Publish, subscribe, unsubscribe. This code is available for you. And again, now if I go to my subscribers, you'll notice that I have 2 subscribers, one which types static. You saw that in the subscribe that gets passed in. And this is our dashboard over here. So that I can say, hello from static. And then you go, hello from CF. And there you go. You can actually connect to the ColdFusion WebSocket server without using the CF WebSocket tag. Thank you again. And that's pretty much it. I think we've covered everything. It's a pretty long video. Again, thank you if you stayed all the way to the end. And if you have any questions, I'm easy to reach. I'll have links to the presentation slides below, as well as the repo for this code. And if you have any questions, reach out. Thank you again.